What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today, February 1st, 2023. We are in February, gentlemen, 1 month closer to the NBA trade deadline. Well, I mean, 1 week closer because it's next week, but 1 month closer to the lottery. Thank God. I'm your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my guy, Jeff Iafrady. Jeff, it's good to see you as always. That hair's coming back. Thank God.
Oh yeah, it's slowly coming back. I cut the sides today. We're trying to shape it up, but you know what? I had to get it cut because I had to change the look. I went to the Pistons game on Saturday and it completely ruined my mood. Once again, by the way, I don't know what it is with me and going to these games, and the worst possible result happens every single time. And me and Sean were texting about this because it feels like when Sean goes, they win, and then I go. And something historic happens. Like we threw a 15-point lead on Saturday, and I was there in attendance.
You know what it is, Jeff? It's when you separate the powers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's what it is.
Because it's not a coincidence that when the three of us were in the building, they got a dub. Yeah. Jeff, when you and I were in the building, they got a dub.
They did. Warriors dub.
Yeah, but it's like when you take one of the things off the Infinity Gauntlet, it's like you can't, it's like not nearly as useful. You know what I mean?
Listen, my buddy went with me. He's very new to the NBA. I told him, listen, I shouldn't say new, but he's not involved. I go, well, listen, we should take care of the Rockets. The Rockets are bottom feeder.
Free dub. Great, fun watch.
They're missing. It's honestly funny that a Pistons fan would say it's a free dub, but I said they're missing 3 starters. They don't have their head coach. He's visiting. He's at his late father's funeral. This should be fine. It started that way, and then in about the third quarter, I look over at him. I go, I'm so sorry. Like I lied to your face. Like this is not the product. I promise this is not the product that you're going to see in the future.
It's always so funny too because I always find out after the fact. And it's funny because I went on Instagram and I was like going through and I was like, I saw you had a story. I was like, man, wouldn't it be funny if Jeff was at that Rockets game last night? I click on it. I see you in the LCA and I'm just like, how is it that every time this team shits the bed, Jeff is center court, man?
I don't know what it is, dude. It's not good.
But it's also joining us, the pod's good luck charm. Our Polish meat hammer, Troy Sergey. Troy, it's good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Sean. Sean, this upcoming Thursday, I get to do something that I have never done before, that I've been waiting since middle school to do, something that you've done before. Jeff, I'm not sure if you've done it, but I get to see LeBron James in person. Yeah. I am stoked.
Dude, that is so awesome.
Is coming to Indy, playing the Pacers. Probably not going to get the record that game, unfortunately. Got the tickets about 2.5 months ago, just in case. Looking like it's going to be a couple of games after. But, hey, get to see him drop a couple buckets and get one step closer to that record. It's going to be great.
The only time I've ever saw LeBron, I saw him one time in Cleveland. I went to a Cavaliers game, and it's when he broke MJ's double-digit scoring record. He scored like 10-plus points, however many times he broke his record, and he held the reward up, and he just walked back. It was like I think it was his last year with the Cavs, I want to say, or the year before that. But, yeah, it was cool. Man, LeBron, dude, it's amazing when you see it.
Yeah, I can't wait.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I've seen LeBron. I've seen LeBron twice now. I saw LeBron once when I was younger, and it was actually one of the worst games of his career. He only had 5 points, and the Pistons won big. And then the second game I saw was Game 3 in 2016, where he went off for a triple double, and then Kyrie Irving hit that dagger 3 in the corner to beat us. That was to go up.
That was their game to win too.
That's dude. There was the Contavious Caldwell Pope dunk. It's like Pistons are back. If only we knew. But anyway, but you know what? We're going to be able to talk about when the Pistons are back here because this is From Half Court Reach, and every week we dive in and talk all things basketball. If you like that, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends below. But also, if you have not yet done so, be sure you click the link below and join the From Half Court Discord. You can get reminders, have conversations, join chats, talk with weird people like myself. Jeff might even pop in there from time to time. If Troy knew what Discord was, he would definitely be there. But with that, it's definitely a great place to be. It is right in the link down in the description below. But with that, gentlemen, It's time to talk about the trade deadline. It's time to talk about basketball. I debated whether or not I wanted to talk about that Rockets game here, but to be honest with you, it's like, what can we say that hasn't been said already? That we didn't say literally last week. It's like, it's just a continuation of that, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That's it. Like, there's not much to bring up. They threw another lead. It's disappointing. It's frustrating, but we would pretty much echo what we said last week. So, like, it's because that was after one of the worst losses of the season. So I think we pretty much summed a lot of this up. We did.
Right.
It's getting harder too, because, you know, you watch a team like the Celtics play, you watch a team like the Grizzlies play, and just, you know, they're playing with so much passion, so much identity, so much talent on the basketball court. And then there's our team, who's really struggling in all of those areas. And the identity's big, but also the talent. I mean, I've been saying the talent's the obvious part, but the effort too. That's one thing you can control, like you said in your last video, Sean, but I just don't see it. I don't.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I've been watching Orlando and been screaming in my pillow because it looks like they like watching them is like what I wanted the Pistons to be this year, you know? And I think, you know, like it's one of those things where, like, I think we've definitely seen the stretches, and it's like, you know, James Edwards brought up a good point where, you know, like almost every time this team goes out and lays an egg, they respond. But the problem is that almost immediately after they respond, they go out and they lay another egg. And, you know, it's kind of interesting. I didn't want to read too much into it at the time, but I almost wonder, you know, like if this was like a little bit of an inkling that there was going to be trouble, because in the post-game interview, you know, Johnny Kane was asking Jaden Ivey in Brooklyn after their win about their effort and what, you know, the adjustments were, and just about, like, you know, the morale in the locker room. And he was just like, I'm really proud of the effort we put in tonight. Just great, solid all around effort. Great team win. And like, maybe this is me being like a little picky, maybe like overthinking things a little too much. But like, when that's your first solid defensive performance in a while, and you put together a solid effort, you showed like, hey, this is like our first, like one of our first solid runs of defense in a while. I don't really want to hear, hey, I'm really proud of what we did. I want to hear, tonight was good. Next night needs to be better. And I think that's the mentality change of going from, I'm just proud of our guys and the effort we put in. It's like, yeah, you could be proud and you could be happy with the effort you put in, but it's like when you're putting in effort and that's your 13th win, no one really cares if you're proud. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, I feel like it's like it's one of those things where it's like, I really feel like I could be nitpicking here, but like, do you guys think there's merit to that point?
You go first, Troy.
Yeah. No, there's definitely merit there. I also think, you know, he's a guy that's proud of his team too. You know, we have to definitely give him credit for that. But at the end of the day too, it's just the lack, like from a Pistons fan perspective, what we've been seeing all year, this team do, and just the lack of the defensive presence, right? The lack of the offensive presence, the lack of everything, the effort, everything we've talked about this whole year on the podcast. And you do have one night of having things together. To me, it just doesn't mean much. But it's different if you're in the locker room. So I think it's that two different perspectives, Sean, of the Pistons fan who's been watching it all year and the player who's in that locker room every day trying to do the X's and O's. And just simply is proud of his team.
Yeah. It's like small victories. I mean, it's better when they're celebrated in, you know, multiple rather than just one performance. Right. Like that performance against the Rockets, I know they're missing multiple starters, but they played well defensively. It seemed like everything was clicking, but then down the stretch, everything else melts down. Like that stuff becomes even more frustrating when things are clicking, but you still find ways to lose. Like it's I guess it's a different perspective for us who we talk about this team all the time. Like when we see, you know, them get a win over a Minnesota, whoever it is, and they follow it up with another good performance. You want to stack those performances. I get celebrating when multiple performances are stacked on top of each other of playing good defense, playing, you know, being efficient offensively. But it's different for us when you're talking about a team that's so wildly inconsistent. You don't really know when to praise and when not to, because it's like good performance, but watch in 2 days when we play the Bucks, you're going to get blown out by 40. It's hard to swallow that.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, you know, like to your point, I think that's where, you know, like I think it's like that's the difference between a young team and a championship level team. You know what I mean? Like a team like the Warriors, you know, like a guy like Draymond Green, he's not resting until you reach perfection. By the time you think you reached it, Draymond already found 3 or 4 more things that you have to work on. You know what I mean? Like those, like when I think of, like the mentality and the things I have, that like you have to find in this locker room, like, and I think that's it. And I think part of it, it's like, again, we talk about, like what we're missing with Cade on the offensive end, but man, just that vocal leader and that lacking of that presence on the court, like that guy, who can, galvanize the troops. And when they are starting to slip, help them refocus and get back into it. Cause it was like, especially in that game, and again, like, we'll wrap this up really quickly, but like, it was like in the second quarter, like it felt like when they were starting to really slip out of the game was when the refs started blowing so many whistles. It's just like, once that started to happen, the Pistons they just got so frustrated. They just started to disengage. They lost their focus. They were looking at the refs. They were arguing about whistles. And it's like, I get those things are frustrating, but you have to at some point like have like the mental fortitude to move on, go to the next possession.
Yeah.
So yeah, just I guess to summarize it all, similar habits, things that we've seen, and just a crappy season, man. Just not a good time.
One thing I can say, and one I actually like the change, is Alec Burks in the starting lineup. I think that's been a positive. Him and Ivy playing together has been positive. Watching them, I watched him in person against the Rockets. I like Ivy now running more of the point guard. His assist numbers have went up. Killian playing well off the bench. Like that stuff you like to see, but still overall not being able to put all these things together to win some games, that's still frustrating. But I got to say, with Alec in the lineup, it's been a little better.
And with the more touches from Burks too, you're trying to play competitive basketball. You're trying to put in your best effort forth. Alec Burks will definitely do that for you. More touches, the better. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important to point out, like tonight is game number 52. And so with that, even though there's been a lot of the season that's gone on and, there have been those trends that I think, in my opinion, we saw some remnants of that earlier in the season, but I think we've really seen, that slip over the past 2-3 weeks on the defensive end. There's still 30 games to redeem themselves. And, there's still about at this current time, about a week and a half until the NBA trade deadline. However, guys, it sounds like we might be getting some intel about where Detroit is at. And we specifically heard from Bojan Bogdanovic himself in a piece via Hoops Hype, where it was actually by Yassi Gazian, and it was Michael Scotto, Yassi Gazian. It was the editorial staff at Hoops Hype, and it breaks down all the latest rumors. And at the very top of the list was the latest on Bojan Bogdanovic. And it sounds like, according to the article, that Bojan's been told by Detroit ownership that he's considered a core member of the team's future and what the offseason plans are to compete next season. And it goes as this, quote, having conversations with the club, Troy, and the owners, they assured me that we're going to be great next year, Bogdanovic told Hoops Hype. We have a lot of cap space to sign great players. We're going to have a high pick again, so that's going to help us a lot. We have a great young group of guys. When Cade went down, that kind of hurt us big time. We were thinking that maybe we'd be fighting for the play-in tournament. But when he went down, he was our main guy. All of our offensive strategies were connected to him. When he went down our season, we've had a lot of ups and downs without him. And, so like the fact that, he speaks, freely and honestly, and it sounds like there's a pretty clear direction and vision from ownership down. But he does go on to say, I heard the rumors, but I'm trying to stay away from those conversations. I don't even have any social media like Twitter. I don't read much about that. It's not in my control. It's about the franchises. I'm just going to try and stay focused and play as best as I can. Then we'll see what's going to happen at the end of the trade deadline. So I think that second part is a pretty standard cookie cutter thing that any player says when they're in rumors and in the trade deadline, right? Ultimately, they have no control about where they go. I don't think that means literally anything. However, that first paragraph, from the sounds of it, means a lot. I mean, granted, this could be Troy in the front office maybe trying to sweeten the pot and try and sweeten an incentive for the team to trade him. However, I mean, guys, this lines up with what James Edwards has been saying for months. what people like Mike Curtis, have been suggesting. And quite frankly, this lines up with like almost everything we've been theorizing over the last year. I mean, Jeff, like we were joking about it right before the pod. It's like, oh yeah, it's almost like you and I have been saying this since last March that like 2023 is like the real year this team's going to try to turn the corner. Look at that.
Yeah. And the point of him saying they would try and contend for the play-in this year with Cade is something that, we talked about, us three, multiple times during the offseason. I didn't think they could with Cade, but now without him, he even understands and very self-aware enough to know where this team is right now. And I don't have a problem, honestly, hearing the report and seeing him talk about his situation. I know I joke and I would be not opposed to trading him. At the same time, I did talk with you guys, and I could see both sides. Like, I would love Bogey here long-term. I wouldn't mind it. And the fact that James reported this, you brought this up on a previous podcast about how much value he brings, not just on the court, but off the court. I think that stuff, to have a guy like Bogey, I know I joke he's getting older, and that's where the value comes in. But still, regardless, how much he can teach these guys, the relationship him and Isaiah Stewart have. I mean, even at the game Saturday, you saw how much they were talking with each other on the court, off the court, on the bench. Like, that stuff matters. I know people just look at Bogey as, okay, let's flip him. But eventually, you're going to have to keep players. I mean, that's where the Pistons are right now if they want to take that next step. Bogey's a pretty good player, and he can shoot the hell out of the ball. This team's going to – if you trade Bogey, it's funny, and the more I think about it, it is funny because you say, okay, let's trade Bogey, and then you're going to sit there as a Pistons fan and say, well, we need shooting. I mean, let's go get shooting. It's like, well, you had Bogey, a career 40% three-point shooter. So right. To me, this is good news. I don't have an issue with it. I mean, they extended him. Who knows what the future holds, but as of right now, him getting that news and kind of that feeling from Troy that he's probably going to stay here. But again, player, I don't know what's going to happen in my future. He says, yada, yada, yada. I think he'll be here. I do. I'm starting to believe that more and more. Yeah. There's no way.
It's just, to me at this point, guys, I feel almost exactly like I did at this exact same point in the trade deadline last year, where there was a lot of hype and buzz in early October to November when Bojan Bogdanovic was originally traded to the Pistons. Almost immediately, people saw that as a potential, flipping deal, right? That was almost immediately the thought. Even before he played his first game in Detroit, almost before he got on the plane, people were talking about how we could potentially package this guy for a first round pick.
He'll be flipped. Yeah.
Right? Like that's been the conversation. But at a certain point, man, when it walks like a duck, when it quacks like a duck, when you have Shams, James Edwards III, and Hoops Hype saying our sources are saying to us, looks like a duck to me, and then you hear it quack, at some point you should call it a duck. What I'm referring to here is this insane, like it's almost like this like Pistons Twitter has this thing where they think they're oracles and they see in the future, and it's like, no, I see it. It's the only path. This is the only way. And then, like, we saw yet again last year how we were proven wrong and why it was ultimately okay, why Grant wasn't traded at the deadline, right? So it's like, I just feel like we're heading in this very similar space. And I would just say, I don't know if I can't say definitively if the Pistons will have a quiet deadline, but I mean, if you're to believe everything we've heard, it certainly doesn't sound like it certainly doesn't sound they're nearly as big of sellers as teams like Toronto.
And did we didn't hear a similar quote like Bogey just came out with from Jeremy, right? There was never an inclination from Troy that he's going to be a part of the future. I don't think I ever heard that with Jeremy.
Right. Yeah, that sounds about right, because we were all kind of shocked on the deadline when he didn't go. I know there was a rumor about an hour before that he was going to go to Brooklyn for a first round pick, and then that never happened. If you recall.
Yeah, if I do recall, I almost remember Jeremy Grant talking like in press conferences saying, yeah, they've told me what's going on, and they've been honest with me about, deals and conversations that have happened, but also they told me that they'd be more than okay if I be here too. So at the end of the day, I'm just going to go out, play ball, and wherever I'll be, like, that's where the cards will stack. Like, I'll look into it and double check, but like, from what I remember, there was never, he's a core piece of what we're building going forward.
Like, and he wasn't extended either. Bogey was extended, so
well, and it's like too. Again, like with Troy Weaver too, and like with NBA execs, we talk all the time about like like you have to listen to what they're saying, but also you have to listen with their actions.
Mm.
And guys, a team that, signed this guy to a 2-year extension, like just a couple months ago, this is their number one option in a season that they're spiraling. Like, I would almost even argue at this point, like, could it kill confidence if you just have this team go out there getting spanked each and every night the rest of the season because you don't have guys like Bojan or Burks in there?
Can make an argument.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes me excited the most out of all of this is that we know that Bojan is a valuable player in this modern day NBA, right? We know that he can fit in on all 30 teams, but he's on our team. And the fact that we want to move forward with him, I think just is exciting to me because we know that his value next year is going to be high. Maybe not the same stats as this past year with obvious reasons, with Cade coming back and a first-round pick and a free agent with more touches with those guys. But Bojan Bogdanovic is a great player who is going to make an impact on this team moving forward, and I am okay with that.
And another part of it too, I want to bring up is an underlying part that I'm starting to, and we kind of already knew that next year would be a year they'd try and make the plan. With Bogey's age, it kind of shows you that this timeline people are talking about with 3 to 4 years away, they're much, at least in their minds, in Troy's mind, they're much closer. And maybe that's why the Bogey, he'll be 36 when they're ready to contend. I don't think so. I think it'll probably be next year when they start making taking those next steps.
Yeah, I think we've been clouded with a lot of negativity and just seeing this team for where they're at right now, and again forgetting the options and the things that are available for them going into the summer and going into the next season. I mean, if that's what Troy Weaver in ownership is conveying, it's pretty clear that they have a plan in a course of action and a philosophy going into this offseason. So again, with the fact that you're going to have, not only a number 1 overall pick and Cade Cunningham returning to the lineup next year, you have a potential number 1 overall pick coming in next year as well. And even if it doesn't land at number 1, worst case scenario, it lands at 6. Oh, darn. You got another awesome wing talent to go add alongside Cade and crew. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, like even if we end up with, what's that kid from Vanderbilt or Villanova?
Whitmore.
Yeah. If we end up with Whitmore, are you telling me that's a bad, is that a bad consolation prize? It's not Wemby, but it'd make us better.
No, it would definitely either of those players. I mean, like we could go when we start previewing the draft. They're going to find out that there's probably 9 or 10 players that we'd be okay taking, and they're going to have probably a top 5 pick.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Can't wait.
Oh man, I'm so excited. It's getting closer and closer. So I mean, Jeff, those are my favorite days last year.
We're running it back, dude.
Going through. Oh, we got to crank barbecue chicken, baby. It's gonna.
We're locked in, dude. Every year.
Oh man,
it gets better every year. If you noticed that, like every year, it seems like more people are tuned in. It's a better product. Like this year, man, people got to stay ready because it's got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I love you guys, man. Grateful for this pod. Grateful for this each and every week. And yeah, man, I just, getting back to it, I just think ultimately, and people, I just see like a lot of people are hearing that and like, it's like, oh yeah, we'll see. And it's like, again, I get that it's easy to look at circumstances in the present time and make definitive judgments about where a team's going moving forward. But I mean, let's remind ourselves, this time last year, Boston was 3 games under 500. Let's remind ourselves that this time last year, we thought Damian Lillard might never reach peak Dame again. This time last year, we questioned if Zion Williamson was ever going to be in a Pelicans uniform again. This time last year, we were still seeing the whole Lakers the whole Lakers Frank Vogel, Russell Westbrook situation, how dire that is. Now they're like a piece or 2 away from actually kind of being serious in the West. This time last year, Phoenix was ruling the West. Yeah. Now they look geriatric. So that's the point I'm saying. And like, even with Phoenix too, right? When Devin Booker went out, how different of a team was that?
Unrecognizable.
And then even the Pacers as well. Troy, I'm sure you've tuned into a couple games since Tyrese Halliburton's been out.
Yeah.
From everything I've seen from all the counting stats, they've been like towards the bottom of the league.
Yeah, well,
in
they're
a lot of
12th
those
seed
categories ever since Tyrese has been out. Like they're free falling in the standings.
Right. They were a 7th seed around New Year's just 4 short weeks ago, and now they're a 12th seed. So they've dropped 5 seeds in the East. I know the East is good this year, but I mean, Washington's now ahead of them. Orlando's getting close. All those teams right there that they had Chicago that they had a good lead on in the early this month. They're falling. So another team unrecognizable.
And that's what's funny about Cade being out is when he was initially ruled out for the season, everyone's saying, or the results we were seeing afterwards, it's like, well, they're bad, but they shouldn't be this bad without Cade. It's like, no, they're this bad without Cade. I mean, that's how this works. And you just brought the Pacers. It's like, welcome.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same reason why, after leaving, Cleveland, the Cavaliers, like after LeBron left Cleveland, the Cavaliers went from being a perennial Eastern Conference powerhouse, getting to the finals or the conference finals almost every year, to literally the worst record in basketball.
Yeah.
Like
the LeBron effect.
In this league, one player can literally change the entire trajectory of your season. So ultimately, that isn't to make excuses. That's just to say, what we think looks certain and concrete right now, we've seen over and over again with this league, the entire hierarchy of the league can change in a matter of 24 hours. I mean, even earlier this season, we thought Donovan Mitchell on a Sunday was going to the Knicks. I woke up, he was a Cavalier. Like what the?
And I didn't think they'd trade him. Remember, I said that on the spot. I'm like, there's no way. Why would they trade Donovan Mitchell? Boom, Cavalier the next day. It's like, all right.
Yeah, it's like, we'll see what teams do with, with the trades. I'm optimistic. Minnesota trades 7 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert. Like, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And Bogey came out of left field, too.
Yeah, that was just about a month before the season started.
Yeah, dude, that was unreal.
Dude, I remember I was sitting in the parking lot of an urgent care, waiting to get my flu shot. And I just look at my phone and I see Bojan Bogdanovic is a Piston. And I just literally go, let's fucking go. I was just like, this season's going to be awesome. And now it's like, how do we tell him? But
how do we tell him? Yeah,
how
right.
do we tell him? But
if you could go back in time and let that man know what was going to happen.
Oh my gosh. But speaking of, I brought up the Raptors a second ago, a team that last year at this time and, in the playoffs gave Philly a run for its money.
Yeah.
This is a franchise that we are looking at could possibly take a next step this year. I think we all thought that this team at the very least would be a lock top 6 seed, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
And now they're sitting at, 23-28, right there with Indiana, Chicago, and Washington in the standings. And the latest rumblings out of Toronto from the reports that I've been seeing, and let me pull it up just so I'm able to cite this specifically. But apparently the Raptors have more than one player that wants out. It sounds reportedly like there's a few players that are unhappy in the 6 currently. And I mean, guys, it's not really surprising, but I mean, at the same time, it sounds like from the trades and the reports I've been hearing as well. Like I've been hearing, it sounds like they've been trying to go after the big man from the San Antonio Spurs. Why am I blanking on his name right now? It's driving me up. Yep. Jakob Poeltl. Yep. Jakob Poeltl is on their list. I don't know. I don't think Jakob Poeltl's coming in and changing this team.
No, not at all.
What are your guys' thoughts on what's going on there? And I don't know about you guys. Like when I watch this team, it's just like all of a sudden it's like whatever identity that they had is just gone.
Yeah. And that's why I think wanted to blow it up.
Yeah. I think it has to do a little bit too with just figuring out who you're surrounding your team off of. Like, I guess who's your franchise player that you're trying to build around? Is it Siakam? Is it Scotty Barnes? Is it even Fred VanVleet? It's it's just that they're kind of just struggling to see okay, they have all this talent, they have all these players, but what exactly are they doing with them? Because clearly what's going on right now isn't working as far as competing in the East this year.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's almost like a false identity. You have a team that went to the finals and won the NBA finals, but obviously the context of that, both the injuries of the Warriors and Kawhi freaking Leonard being on the roster had a lot to do with that. And it's like you have these championship pieces and you feel like, okay, we're maybe a player or two away from making a run or being significantly better. But the reality is that's not what this is. Like to me at least, and I know we talked about this a lot, that project's over. Like Scotty Barnes is still very young. He's still on a rookie deal. I think that's the player. If you're going to build around, you're going to build around him. And I don't think you should trade everybody away, but you got to start making some sort of moves. I don't think getting Jacob Poeltl is going to change anything for the Raptors. And that's kind of I guess the identity they're struggling with is, do we keep our championship pieces because we know these guys can get there and can play at that highest level? Or do we just say screw it and blow it up? To me, it's blow it up, but what do I? I'm not a Raptors fan. I wouldn't.
Right. And I'm not comparing it because I think it was a different situation. But even remember our situation in 2008, 2007, those Eastern Conference Finals.
You're
run.
tweening. You're tweening.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have, a Tayshaun Prince, a Rip Hamilton, a Rasheed Wallace, and Chauncey Billups who aren't getting younger. You trade Chauncey, which was probably the bad move. I think probably is an understatement.
I mean, like trading Chauncey's one thing. It's just trading him for the antithesis of everything that he and the Pistons stood for is the one little flaw in that.
AI.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then still trying to compete with an AI, roster with Prince and Hamilton and Wallace. And then, you lose Wallace in the offseason, then you're still trying to make Rodney Stuckey your face of the franchise, but still having your Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince.
Yeah.
And then you bring back Ben, and it's just weird.
It's not great when you go from going to work to we're talking about practice. It's not a good transition. You know what I mean?
I see some small similarities between this modern day Raptors though, in that situation.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I think it's similar to that situation, and I think just a lot of things that we see is that like we generally believe that these teams have giant windows, or that we see these teams like building momentum, but like at a certain point, like has a core or like a collection of players, have they reached their peak? Have they reached like the most of what they can accomplish together? And with like specifically with Van Vliet, with Siakam, with those guys, as good of players as they are and how skilled they are and how far they've come since that finals run, they're not good enough to overcome the loss of that Kawhi Leonard. And it doesn't feel like that guy is going to be walking in the door for them anytime soon. No. As much as they wanted, Scotty Barnes to take that next leap, I'm sorry, guys. I mean, he's just raw.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually a great point, because I feel like they figured Scotty would fill that void with his development, but his development's taking a little longer. I think he'll still end up being a great player, but like you said, he's still raw. Still a lot of things, Scotty. It's not a 2-3 year. I mean, that's like a 4-year I mean, Scotty will eventually get there, but not as quick as maybe they thought he'd get there.
Well, in Troy, I would argue as well that isn't it almost making his development a little bit more difficult when you do have guys like Siakam and Van Vliet and even OG Anunoby who demand a lot of touches or command, I should say, a lot of touches with with their scoring ability. And also, I mean, for all intents and purposes, like you're kind of, not only is your roster kind of a tweener in the standings, but I mean, they're sitting on the fence of, do they want to blow it up or do they want to patch it up? And that's just an awkward place to be.
Well, that's just brainstorm here. I mean, if you take away touches, even from like a Gary Trent Jr., and you give them to Scotty Barnes, if you take a little bit of touches away from even a Fred Van Vliet, and you keep a Siakam as your core, or a Barnes Siakam as your core, just those touches alone, and you give them to Scotty. Not saying every touch, but you give a handful of those touches to Scotty, it changes his offensive game. So that's a great point, Sean. And I think they have a lot of good players. but nowhere near the amount of great players that you need to compete for a championship in this modern day.
Yeah, I don't know if it changes his game, but it certainly changes the opportunity. It changes the outlook of the output, I guess.
More touches equals more opportunities.
Right, 100%.
Imagine keeping Cade, or drafting Cade rather, while keeping Drummond, keeping Blake, keeping Reggie, and then having Cade go in there and try and become the player he is today. It just wouldn't happen. So, and not saying it wouldn't be the player, but you wouldn't have that opportunity, to your point, Sean. So that's significant. It really is.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, like again, I think this team after winning that title in 2020, I think it's just kind of been, oh yeah, well, we still have some solid pieces in house. I mean, let's see what we can do. And it just, quite frankly, just ever since that point, it just feels like they've been lacking that direction. And so, you know, it's interesting because, you know, Masai Ujiri is, you know, for a long time been regarded as one of the best executives in basketball. And I think he might be under the most pressure in his tenure in Toronto to, you know, see what they can do and flip this into. Reportedly, according to Shams, it sounds like the Knicks and Suns are among interested suitors on OG Anunoby. And as soon as I saw this, I was like, man, the Knicks would be the team to overpay for OG Anunoby, would they? Like to me, when I saw that report, I was just like, how did I not see it until now? They're gonna overcompensate for the fact that they didn't get Donovan Mitchell, and they're gonna go spend the farm on OG Anunoby.
Yeah. And you know what's funny too? Another team, and I don't want to change the topic, but I want to bring this up to you, Sean, because we talked about them a week ago, and look at the difference this team is a week ago. It's New Orleans Pelicans. They're 1-9 over the last 10. No Zion Williamson for 2 weeks. What the hell's going on with the Pelicans?
Yeah, man.
They went from like what, the 3rd seed to now the 8th seed, and they're like a game or two from being out of the entire playoffs, like entirely.
They were
dude. So yeah, their season when the injuries started piling up, because it was with, you know, at first like Brandon Ingram had that injury. He was out for a while. He just came back into the lineup this past week. Zion, you know, has been touchy in and out of the lineup. And as much depth and as much talent and, you know, like and potential as we've seen on this team, I think we're also I think right now we're seeing it's like, okay, but here's where they have to get better. Here's where they have to grow. Like they have a plethora of players on that team. I don't know if they have a ton of defined roles outside of Zion, outside of like, I feel like there's only like 3 or 4 guys that know exactly what they need to be doing each and every night on that team. I feel like Jose Alvarado is one of them. Like, listen, just go out there and defend like hell. You know, CJ McCollum, you're here to score the basketball.
Right.
Zion, Brandon Ingram, same thing. But everyone else, it's fluid to what's around them. And it's like the fact, like when you have like, when you're elevating guys like Herb Jones and Jose Alvarado to have to take significant shots, I mean, it's just, I mean, that's what you've seen. But also it's like, man, just like, it's crazy to see just how tight that West has gotten. But like on the flip side, guys, the Kings are the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. I mean, guys, Monty McNair got an extension. And when's the last time a Kings general manager got an extension?
Yeah, and you know what? I want to speak on this because I've given Monty McNair quite a few shots over the last couple of years, specifically on this podcast. And what they're doing in Sacramento, trading away Tyrese, getting a lot of criticism for that move, getting Sabonis, getting Keegan Murray, getting Kevin Huerter, who's been great for them. I got to give them credit. They're playing great basketball. I mean, to your credit. I mean, even in a West where, you know, it is what it is. It's not the most stacked West. They're 3rd right now, 27-21. I mean, hey, credit to Sacramento. As much flack as, you know, as you can give Monty for past mistakes, they're putting together a nice core of players. They really are.
Yeah, I'll say this. They're making me look like an idiot for this.
The Sacramento Kings just made one of the worst trades NBA history.
I felt like Interstellar here. I wish I could go back and take that back.
The Sacramento.
I mean, at the time, it was shocking. Yeah,
because we kind of thought, and Sabonis was his finished product. He was Blake Griffin on the 2.0 on the last stints of his Pistons. Just a guy who's only got a couple years left playing good basketball in the league. And Tyrese Halliburton's a future All-Star and future MVP, and we still believe that to be true. But fits this Kings team well with the De'Aaron Fox running the show. Go ahead, Sean.
And that's exactly it right there, Troy. And I think the biggest thing that I remember, I remember why I didn't believe this would work and why I'm glad to say I was wrong is when they made this trade, I thought we had seen De'Aaron Fox at his full potential. However, I think what we've seen this season is once this team has a little bit of structure, once this team actually went out and got a couple more good players to patch up some holes, like they made good moves this offseason. I mean, after the Halliburton trade, I can't think of a move they've made where I didn't like it. Like in all seriousness, if Keegan Murray wasn't on this Kings team, they would not be nearly as good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even though everyone's talking about Ivy was the obvious pick, and I'm still super glad we have Ivy. I mean, Keegan Murray's been a hit for them. Kevin Huerter has just taken his game to another level.
Right.
We saw minor flashes of that in Atlanta, but nowhere near what we're seeing.
Feels like he's being unleashed.
Yeah.
In Sacramento.
You should see. It's so funny. Hawks fans in the comment section of all these Kevin Huerter highlights and how much they miss him. It's hilarious. And I got to give credit to Monty McNair for this point as well. Building a roster around De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis with shooting galore, and guys that can play, know their role. We just talked about the Pelicans and guys not knowing the role. You have Huerter, knows his role. Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray, like these guys, Malik Monk, shooting. Guys that just want to score the basketball. They're not selfish. It's a great fit of players. So I think Monty, he deserves a ton of credit. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Elevated his game too.
And Mike Brown, by the way.
Mike Brown, absolutely. Because the second piece of it is, again, like talking about the structure. I mean, first of all, Mike Brown, this is his first head coaching job, I believe, since he took the Lakers job. Back like in like that awkward transition in like the 2010s, and he was released from that job and he went to go and be the assistant coach with Steve Kerr in Golden State. And it's pretty apparent, not only, I mean, first of all, it seems like he might be missed in Golden State this season, with everything that's been transpiring there, but also, first of all, like the adult in the room that he is, and people underestimate the amount of experience that this guy brought. And I even remember initially like scratching my head a little bit, because it's like, well, I haven't heard Mike Brown brought up in the head coaching sphere in a while, but in retrospect, he's the adult and the steady hand in the room that they needed.
Yeah, that's it. Especially for a young team that had no really identity at all. I mean, they didn't have an identity just last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, honestly, I think it helps having a guy like Mike Brown who was around Steph Curry each and every day.
Yeah.
And was part of a championship culture, who can come in, with De'Aaron Fox, and he's challenged him to be better on the defensive end. And, he's put a system around these guys that, they're playing good, consistent basketball. Like, they're solid on both ends of the court. So, we talked about how, this team has a lot of potential. If you would have told me that 50 plus games in, the Sacramento Kings would be first in the NBA in points per game and offensive rating, would not have believed you.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because now when I think of where do the Kings go from here, it's almost like, do the Kings make them, do they go get another guy? What? Could the Kings be something?
Yeah.
I just don't even know what to think. Is this a fluke? Is this for real?
It's hard. That's a hard thing to go with, Sean, because we've seen that this current roster is working, right? Do you really want to give up a guy like Harrison Barnes? Do we really want to give up Kevin Huerter? No, not me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the fact that they're playing, if you would have told me that Sabonis would be playing the 5 for them and they'd be as good as they are, I'd be like, no way. like Sabonis. Like he's playing the 5 for them. They have Keegan, Harrison, Herter, like De'Aaron and Sabonis. Like Sabonis too, for him stepping into this new role. Like Mike Brown deserves a ton of credit, getting the rotations right. I mean, these guys, they're probably one move away. I know right now they're a good team, but you go out and get, whoever is going to be available. Sacramento, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Sacramento might make some noise. Like they're only a player away from being taken serious. I think they're a little young right now, but still, De'Aaron Fox, I got to give him credit too, because I always thought Tyrese, and I still believe I would rather have Tyrese, but De'Aaron is proved a lot of people wrong too. He's having a great season. He really is.
No doubt. And, listen, are the Kings going to be in this spot for the rest of the season? It's hard to say. However, if they're, if they keep going in this direction, not only do the Kings, have a solid chance, to make to do something or have some interesting noise in the playoffs, they might potentially have home court.
Yeah.
Here's the catch-22 though. If the season were to end today, they would have home court, but they would be facing the Golden State Warriors in the first round. And then that gets to the conversation of what do you think the Kings do in that series? Yeah. And if you look me in the eyes, and even with where the Warriors are right now, and you tell me that you think the Kings win that series, I would say that you're an absolute lunatic.
But you know what? It's still a good thing, a great experience. Like because if I'm trying to think of it, if we're talking about the Pistons in this scenario, and you're like, yeah, they're facing the Warriors, it's like, dang. But at the same time, it's like, hey, experience. You're facing a championship team in the first round. It's something they can build off, but it's not ideal. Like
the Kings aren't supposed to go to the finals this year, guys.
No, they're a first round exit. But still, it's good. It's a good story.
Right, for sure. And it's just going to be, and looking league wide, at other stories and things coming down the deadline. It's interesting to see another team that we're talking about, a team that needs to make a move or a team that needs to go do something is the Mavericks. And, funny, as a recording, the Pistons are actually preparing to play the Mavericks. Chuckles, I'm in danger, having for that defense to face Luka Doncic. Good Lord. You'll see how that went by now.
He was just announced he's going to play tonight too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I saw that. Literally, I sent the gift. Chuckles, I'm in danger. It's just like, oh God, here we go. Luka on one leg is terrifying than most players on two.
Thank God he's in the West.
Yeah, for sure. But reportedly, according to Shams, the Jazz are apparently really interested in Dorian Finney-Smith. And apparently Dallas is open to moving him. And this is what caught me off guard from this report, and let me know if this confuses you guys as well. As teams have gotten the impression that Dallas would be open to moving the 29-year-old in the right deal for a star caliber player, sources say. I'm sorry. What trade are you getting a star caliber player in return for Dorian Finney-Smith? I understand Dorian Finney-Smith brings a lot of value, but why would Utah trade anything of value for? I mean, some picks, maybe. If they see him as as something that can help them improve and continue to go forward as a potential building piece. I guess
Dallas isn't looking for picks.
Yeah, they're looking for a star caliber player.
What are they going to give him? Jordan Clarkson?
Yeah, that's about as best.
If you want Laurie marketing, good luck. Give me 3 first-round picks.
Oh yeah. You're gonna have to. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the other piece of it. And in my opinion, I think why we're not seeing a whole lot of chatter, and I think why we've been seeing such a quiet front. Rudy Gobert screwed everything up. Once a guy goes for 6 or 7 first-round picks, the trade market is quite literally broken right now.
Yeah.
Right. That's why we haven't seen anything except Rui Hachimura.
Right.
And even him, he went for 3 or 4 second-round picks. It was 4, I believe.
He went for 2 seconds, which if you think about it is a couple pennies in the, is a couple pennies in the pond at the mall, and then it's in the fountain. I'm a dumbass. But it's nothing to them. And then Kendrick Nunn, the guy who's been talked about getting traded for a year and a half.
Yeah.
I also saw Utah might be a place for John Collins as well, which that's interesting. But at the same time, John Collins and Lauri Markkanen, that's a
Utah.
It's like Danny Ainge, one of the best minds in basketball. What is this guy doing?
It'd be a Utah move to collect a roster of mid players and try to contend again. Like Utah's route was built through the draft. That's what it is. It's what it always. Now, if you want to add John Collins and again, you still have plenty of assets. You want to go draft guys, that's fine. But like you said, Lauri Markkanen, where you can play the 3, you can play him at the 3 and play Collins at the 4, or play him at the 5 and Markkanen at the 4. It's if Sabonis is playing the 5, I mean, I guess anything's possible, but still, it doesn't really make a ton of sense to me.
Do you think that the Jazz being good at the beginning of the season was almost one of the worst things that could have happened to them this year? Like, do you think, like, instinctively, like, even though, like, Danny Ainge is like, yeah, I never built a team to lose, it's like, I don't know, man. That roster to me at the beginning of the year looked like if they weren't trying to lose, then they were certainly picking with a blindfold on.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact that we're seeing this level of play, and like obviously it's slipped from the beginning of the season. You know, right now they're at 26 and 26 at this current time, like just right dead even down the middle fringe of the play-in. Like, yeah, they're just in an interesting spot. And like, you know, any of those moves like Dorian Finney-Smith or John Collins, like, I don't know. I'm just interested to see what the long game is here. Like, is Utah going to try and potentially like take some of these pieces and try and make this team actually competitive in a year or two? Are they going to like, you know, like, do they see this Lauri Markkanen thing as like something they could actually like start competing with? Like, it's interesting. Or are they going to somehow, for whatever reason, flip Markkanen and just completely change? It's like, man, it's to quote Brian Windhorst, what's going on in Utah?
By the way, another head coach I got to give a ton of credit to, Will Hardy. He's great hire for the Utah Jazz. I think that's like as much as you could say maybe it messed a lot of things up by winning so early. I think it's a great thing. It means you got it means you got a competent head coach.
Oh yeah, they unlike us, they feel pretty darn comfortable and content in the long term about what they have in the coaching seat going forward. But
they got rid of a dang good one too. So I mean, Quinn Snyder to make that move, it's ballsy, man.
Yeah, 100%. But when he comes in and has immediate success like that, I mean, pretty dang vindicating. But anyway, guy, I mean, like obviously when the deadline comes out, you know, like where I'm so excited for that day. It's just it's a day in my calendar I circle and highlight each and every year. And you know, the fact that we're getting closer and closer to it, man, I'm just curious to see what's going to unfold. I definitely like everyone's like, I don't think much will happen. I feel like there's always at least some form of surprise every year. You know?
Always. Yeah. Even for a team, I mean, you see teams communicating and things being reported. I mean, you saw the Bucks just offer, what was it? I'm reading it right now. The Jordan Nora, Serge Ibaka, George Hill, second round draft compensations for Jamison Crowder. Like there's going to be something. Contenders are going to want to make moves. I mean, this is more of a feel out period, but I can see some guys like Jay Crowder being traded. I don't know. I'm curious to see what the big splash this year is, but there'll definitely be a ton of trades as always. Every single year.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Things are going to happen at some point.
It'll start brewing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you know what? Even if Troy's here or not, we can keep on rolling. Jeff, let's talk and let's think about. So I referenced that a second ago, and you know, I know a lot of people in like the talk around the Dwayne Casey thing. There is definitely elevated more and more. It's definitely, I don't know about you, but like I like it's I don't know, like I said in a video earlier this week that I'm done defending Dwayne Casey, and I'm still in that stance. He's a good man. I think he's had had some really good points in his career. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think, you know, at this current juncture, I think we've just seen, you know, like some real question marks. And especially like when you see like the things like the effort not being there on a night-to-night basis, it doesn't matter who's in the coaching seat. You have questions, right? Yeah. So on your end, you know, like I know like you and I still kind of believe over the next couple of years, they're going to be looking to make a change of some form in that realm. What's been, you know, do you, like, are you starting to feel a little bit more of an urgency to get that in house? Where is your head at with that?
My thoughts on Dwayne haven't really changed. I think it's fair to be frustrated. We've said that on this podcast multiple times. It's completely fair to be frustrated, but also from our perspectives, we're very self-aware enough to know Dwayne is not going to be here. So I think it digests a little easier. Love Dwayne as a human. He's a tremendous coach, but right now at his age and where this team's at and all the youth this team consists of, it's just not a reality. He's going to be the coach. I think it'll even be made possibly this offseason. I do believe that, because watching Dwayne and watching the Pistons over the course of the season, I don't think he's the sole issue, but there comes a point in time, especially seeing him in person on Saturday, where it seems like guys just check out, and we promised we were going to bring it up if we see it. That was always what we said. If we see effort and we see the players not responding over a long period of time, you're gonna have to call it out, right? We saw good performances, we've seen bad performances, but when you start stacking up these performances we've seen over the last 2 weeks, it's getting ugly. And again, I don't want to say we're defending Dwayne, but I think we understand where his future holds with the Pistons. And I do think a change this offseason will be possible, because if you don't think Dwayne's the guy to get you to the playoffs or even, make a playoff run, why wait? I mean, these guys next season, I think, will be blossomed enough or groomed enough to at least contend for the play-in. Why not go get your head coach now or this offseason? Not right now. I know people want him fired right now. That was the biggest thing I couldn't wrap my head around, because firing him right now, I don't think fixes anything. Maybe you get a new voice in there, but in the offseason, I think, is a realistic change. I just think these guys, all the youth you have in the locker room, I think at a point in time, you just need a new voice. And I think that's kind of what they're coming to right now. It's nothing against Dwayne as a human, but it's kind of the reality you're in right now with this current team.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something that's interesting too, that I've seen a lot of people say, is that his coaching philosophy is outdated in the modern day NBA. And it's not really my words. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I think it would be healthy for these young guys to then have a new voice. And again, you looking at him going to the front office, I think is the best thing. I think long-term, I think he's a Detroit Piston guy, right? He has that mentality. I think that's been good over the past couple of seasons. But I think a fresh voice with this new team, because we have to understand next year, like we've talked about, is going to be a new team in every way, shape, and form, right? Because we obviously can't contend with the roster we have now. We need pieces from the draft, the offseason, a healthy Cade back, all of the above. I think a fresh voice might be good. And maybe you still have him in the coaching staff if it's like an assistant role. I don't know.
Or maybe just like an advisor, or like very similar to Beeline, like a player development type role.
That would be great.
Right. And again, like and it's one of those things where, to your point, like I don't know if it's necessarily a point where it's like his coaching philosophies are outdated. But what I would say is, I think you notice as coaches in sports as a whole get older, I think you see that they generally are more set in their ways and set in the methods in which they do things, right? And I think the problem with that is, like, when, again, like you said, it's like, it's like, we're going to stick true to the process. We're going to stick true to what we have going on. It's like, at a certain point, even if players wholeheartedly believe you and are on board with everything going on, it's hard to not, lose focus or be discouraged when you are having these many losses and these types of losses. Right. And again, like, I think we've seen that this coaching staff and that this team is capable of making adjustments, is capable of, of having those nights where they know what that effort needs to look like. But it's just that thing of, it's just that for whatever reason, it's not clicking on a night to night basis. And again, that I don't think that's like fully on a coach. I don't think that's fully on the play. Like, I think there's a lot of different things that go into it. But what I will say is, again, like, if these defensive woes continue to keep going down the path that they are, I mean, it's just, in the city of Detroit, it just can't happen. It just can't.
And there's nothing wrong with Dwayne being the Mark Jackson to your Steve Kerr, right? The before, you could still say Dwayne Casey is a good coach. I do believe that. I don't think he's a terrible head coach, but like a young Warriors team, you need a new voice. And that's not just the Warriors. I mean, that's the most common example, but that happens all around the league. Like you have young cores that you're building. You need a new voice to come in and take them to another level, or just a new voice for these guys to look at and be like, hey, listen, Dwayne is no longer our head coach, mostly because the players hold responsibility to that. I mean, they're out on the court, they're executing. Now with the new head coach, it's like, all right, guys, now it's time to get serious. This is our new voice. You're going to be much more paying attention to detail. I think they love Dwayne like an uncle. Like I really do. I think they love Dwayne as a human being. But when it comes to basketball, for whatever reason, this team doesn't seem to respond consistently, or in games, they look disinjected. Late in games, like you said, against the Rockets, they just kind of clock out. And to me, at times, that's kind of the result, or the end result I'm coming to, is they just need a new voice. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and again, I think, and to me, this is where the conversation of where roster building and improvement comes into play as well, because like one of the biggest things that you need in this court, not like, or in this game, is like not only do you need, like a guy who like a great coach and like a great voice to lead your locker room, like, like in that spot, but also for all intents and purposes, you need a guy who can act as a coach on the floor, a guy who can, who can direct traffic, make sure that things are being executed and reel and bring people in. And, it's like, again, like you don't want to rely solely on your players to bring people back in, but it's like when only the coaching staff, is like, are the ones, saying the same things each and every night. And like, even though like the young guys could be like, guys, we have to focus in and do these things. The problem is that they're the same ones that are making those mistakes. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, like, again, like, I just think, like we've seen this roster clearly was flawed from day one from a defensive standpoint. Like, I mean, we all saw that this team wasn't going to be a great defensive team, but it needs to be a hard playing defensive team in order for it to grow in the right direction. It just has to.
Mm-hmm. Right. It doesn't help that your best player is a liability on defense. Like that's which it is what it is.
Yeah, 100%. But Jeff, I want to come. We were firing people last week. We were trading people a couple weeks before. Are we like are we going to have like two people we have to like save off a cliff? We can only choose one. Like, are we killing people today? What are we doing?
So today we're doing one of the games we played already. It's one of our 3 editions. Not trading, not firing coaches, but pretenders or contenders. We're bringing that back up right now. Yeah. And I got 2 teams. And the first one, it's funny because whenever I have a team or a player, the team always gets brought up during the podcast. The team for today, Sacramento Kings. Yeah. I checked the standings before the show and to see where they're at right now as a 3rd seed. I don't want you to answer if they're contenders, but more so, is this sustainable? And what can the Kings do if you believe it? What do they got to do to take it the next step? Do they need to get another player? Do you like the core they have? So on and so forth. Do you think what they're doing right now is sustainable? And Sean, I'll start with you.
I think that this team has taken a lot of leaps and steps forward. However, I do question if this team can continually be the number 1 offense for the rest of the season. I know they have been, through 52 games, and I know in particular, they've been on a really good stretch, but like, again, like this is a locker room that, like they've certainly gotten better. They're learning how to win together. They're learning how to put together results on a more consistent basis. But at the same time, I mean, this is a roster that like, especially going like down the stretch, they haven't had to face, right? They haven't had this type of important basketball this time of season in a long time. And so, like we talk about how like an injury can totally side rail and change a season. I mean, like this is a team that needs everything to go right in order for it to keep up. So I certainly think that we've seen that this team has taken the next step. I think we've seen that this team clearly is as a playoff team. And I think there's a lot, to build with and go forward here. But like, do I think they're the 3rd best team in the Western Conference? I just don't. And I just can't say that with a straight face.
Yeah. And as far as, the future of the Kings and what I would do if I was in GM shoes, I let it ride this season. You know what I mean? With the current roster, as far as what can the season do to the playoffs, I'm not making a deal next week.
Please don't move any assets to
Right.
try and do anything crazy this season. Like,
Right.
like don't pull a Minnesota. Just enjoy the ride.
Right. Now, if something happens playoff wise where you have a little more to work with, maybe you do something in the offseason, but you certainly don't do anything this season. Just see what this team can do in the playoffs. Maybe you run into who's a team that they could beat in the first round that's realistic.
I mean, realistically, if you're talking about teams that they could beat in the first round, that's realistic. It would be, you would just have to hope that, it would be one of these teams that's coming out of the play-in tournament. But like, even then, you look at the teams that are 7 through 10 in the play-in tournament right now. I don't know if I like their odds in half of these games. I mean, right off the bat, Dallas, they have to face Luka Doncic in a 7-game series. I'm sorry, that's just not happening. New Orleans, I think we've seen that if this team's healthy at full strength, this might be the best roster in basketball.
Right.
And I would wager they're probably going to make a trade at the deadline too. Phoenix, which I know they're in free fall, but they still have a guy named Devin Booker.
Yeah.
And all signs point to the fact that he would be back, by the playoffs for sure. So if you're in a playoff series if you're against CP3 and then the final one, and again, really the only team I think they could beat in a series and a team that's just not going to get to the playoffs, if I'm being honest, is Utah.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like one of those things where I don't even know, even looking at how good they are, I don't know what team in the West I like them to beat in the playoffs right now. It's weird.
Yeah. Now I'm doing one team from the West, one team from the East, and my Eastern Conference team, a team that we've talked about at times on this show, and currently they're 9-1 over the last 10 games. They currently are 3 games ahead, basically 3 games ahead of the Bucks, and you know what it is. The 76ers, Philadelphia, playing great basketball as of late. They're healthy. Joel Embiid's doing what Joel Embiid does, and James Harden seems to be having a good season. What do you guys think? 76ers, are you still classifying them as fraudulent? Or do you think in an Eastern Conference where it's pretty top heavy, do you think they have a chance to make any noise in the playoffs?
You go first, Troy.
Yeah, make noise, but not a finals. Make noise at best. I mean, you can maybe upset.
What's the ceiling? Put a ceiling on it.
Ceiling, absolute ceiling, max ceiling is Eastern Conference Finals. But I'm not putting money on them to make the Eastern Conference Finals. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if a game 6 if they're down 3-2 in a second round series and they have a great game 6 and they somehow upset that team, Milwaukee or something. I'm not saying that they will, but upset them in a game 7 or something like that. Then
they face Boston.
Yeah. Right. Then they face Boston, but that is peak max.
Yeah. Talk about a team. So first of all, I would say they've been watching them, and obviously they look really good right now. James Harden has fully embraced that that playmaking role, allowing Joel Embiid to cook. Harden's 21-11. Shooting 40% from 3. Like, this is the guy they needed in order to be serious this year. But with that being said, I've seen this team be awesome in January for a long time. I've seen this team do a lot of great things in December, January, February, March. And, as much as I look at this team and I see the potential and where this can go, especially how difficult it is to guard a Joel Embiid, what he can do in a playoff series. I just have real questions about their depth. I mean, outside of James Harden and Joel, you have 2-star caliber players right there. I know we've seen Tyrese Maxey step up in big moments and play big basketball, but I mean, in order for them to get to the finals, he would have to be stellar in each and every series. And it's just when you have a Tyrese Maxey, when he has to go up against Boston, I mean, that's just tricky, especially when defensively they're on. And then, especially if they are going to be serious, they're going to have to make some moves because, right now that obviously their top 5 is, Harden, Embiid, Maxey, Harris, and then DeAnthony Melton. They have PJ Tucker, who has not been the guy that they were hoping he would be for them this year. 3 points a game. So PJ Tucker's just
that's one corner 3 a game.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's
Good
just
for a corner
gone.
three.
Not that he hasn't been available, by the way, 46 games played, but outside of that, like, guys, like, let's play a game. Name 2 players on their bench.
Thibault.
I know
Yeah,
Shake
sure.
Milton. That's one of the only guys I know. Shake Milton.
Troy got it, but even then, he had to go. He had to think about it first. Like that's the thing, man. Like I know a lot of benches have nameless, like have like guys that we see as no names, but it's like, man, like just looking at the like overall trajectory of this roster. Like I like Montrezl Harrell. I like Matisse Thybulle. Like I like what these guys were like a couple years ago, but like they would need significant, contributions for them. And at the end of the day, when you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference, do they have a deeper roster than Boston?
No.
They have a deeper roster than Milwaukee.
No.
Do they have a deeper roster than Brooklyn? Because I could argue Brooklyn's roster has more depth.
I think that's where the argument starts, probably.
Like I think there's more guys off of Brooklyn's bench that can come in and like make an impact, which I can't believe I'm saying, but like, that's a whole other thing. But again, yeah, like I again, to answer your question and to wrap the bow on this, Philly is, Joel Embiid's incredible. James Harden's incredible, but they're the 2 players whose rap has been, let's see it in May. Let's see it in June.
Yep.
And until I've seen it with my eyes, I'm just not going to believe it.
Yeah, you guys passed the test today. Both contenders. I agree. I didn't think anybody else would. That's why we do this podcast. We all have mutual viewpoints. So, but there you go. 2 teams, 1 East, 1 West, both pretenders.
At first, he said both contenders. We agree. I was like, no,
no, both pretenders.
Yeah.
I don't trust either of those teams.
Oh, thank God! Thank God you feel the same. I mean, the Kings one. I was like, there's no way. No way.
I thought you guys were gonna say, well, if they make the playoffs,
I could see you get lost in that Embiid sauce, though. I mean, I wouldn't blame you, but I mean, like,
no,
Embiid's that guy. But I mean,
yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. He's that guy, but come May, June, like then you have questions.
Well, yeah, and even then, it's like, and even though, like, we've seen Embiid on the health side be more available than years past, it's still a thing.
And they still have Doc Rivers as a head coach, so they.
Yeah,
you're just like, yeah, you're right.
Never forget the night where Doc's Twitter likes were out there for the people to see.
Yeah, he was down bad. Down bad.
Yeah, never forget that night. That was the time. But Troy, speaking of some of the a Mount Rushmore-esque moment, let's take a trip to end this pod the way that we always do, from Mount Rushmore. I'm trying to think. I believe I remember we ranked most underrated players.
Yeah, we did franchises last week.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Troy, what are we doing this week?
Yeah, this week, all 3 of us have something cool in common. All from the great state of Michigan. I'm from UP. You from
the great state of Michigan.
UP, West Side, East Side. We got all representing Michigan here right now. So we're going to do the Mount Rushmore of NBA players from Michigan. Okay. The only rule that we have here is that you have to have been born in the great state of Michigan.
Great state of Michigan.
You didn't have to attend college in the great state of Michigan, but you had to have been born there. And I would prefer they played high school ball in Michigan. And I will start with a guy who did both. Born, high school, college, Chris Webber. Member of the Fab Five, big guy in Detroit Country Day. One of the best, not the best, but one of the best high school Michigan players of all time with that Detroit Country Day team. He's a guy that Hall of Famer, won, didn't win a national championship, but won, a little bit while he was in Michigan. And we know how the Fab Five went, but he was clearly the best player on that Fab Five team. Hall of Fame player because of what he meant to the Kings organization. I mean, a guy that could get a double-double like no other. Had a little stint with the Detroit Pistons there. So he's a cool guy who has high school, college, and NBA rooted in Michigan. For me, Chris Webber, Has to be on my list.
Yeah, and you could just name another Fab Five member, Jalen Rose. I mean, we could just keep going. Jalen Rose He went to Southwestern High School. Dad was a #1 overall pick, played for the Pistons. And Jalen Rose, to me, this is why I love. Are you going to bring up Jalen Rose?
He's
no,
not.
I'll just. You guys keep going. You'll see why. Well, you'll see why I'm in disbelief in a second.
Go ahead. Well, this is a personal thing. I love Jalen Rose, and
I
honestly,
know. It's just when I say it, you'll feel like a dumbass, but it's okay. Keep going. Keep going.
Well, we know it's
you're
last.
good. Keep going.
We know it's last. That's not a secret. But go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. Well,
okay. So you know what you know what I'm talking about right now.
You're talking about Magic, but
Okay. I was like, how do you not start with Magic?
No, it's not about.
Yeah, we work our way up to Magic. Go ahead, Jeff.
There's no way Magic was going to slide past.
Okay.
I
was just
sure. I wanted to go with Jalen Rose, just one of my personal favorite players of all time. I love him still showing love, still coming out and coming to Detroit. He shows Woodward Sports a lot of love. He's just a great guy, man. So shout out to Jalen Rose, one of the best players to ever come out of Michigan. Behind Magic Johnson.
There we go.
There you go. There's your alley-oop.
There we go. I mean.
Oh, yeah.
I mean.
I'm not going to take your thunder shot. I would never.
I mean.
Look at that.
Irvin Magic Johnson. Man.
Sean, go back to that. What's the comment there on the bottom? Man, I wish I could have met Jerry West. Who said that?
He said, dang, I wish I could have gotten a picture with Jerry West when I was a kid. Except... He was definitely joking. It's a buddy of mine who knows basketball. But yeah, man. I mean, listen. I mean, when we talk about, I mean, he is the best player, from the state of Michigan.
Yeah,
he's in my opinion, I have him third in my all-time list. I know it's controversial, but I would go Jordan, LeBron, Magic, personally. And and I think you look at the career that he had, like Magic had an all-time great career, and we forget his career was cut short.
I know.
And just the things that he represents. I mean, I think I think he's in my opinion, when you look at the players that put the state of Michigan on the map as like a basketball state. Like I just think we look at that Michigan State program, and that like a lot of that wouldn't be where it is if Magic Johnson didn't come through those doors. Like. Man, like when we talk about like basketball history in the state of Michigan, I mean, it's the conversation can't be had without Magic. So I was just making sure. I was just like, got, hold on. Like, we had two names go before Magic. I just have to make sure for my boys here.
We got you. And now listen, it's funny because ironic, you're wearing a Big Ten champion shirt. You're bringing up a Spartan, but you know what? It is what it is.
I do see the irony, and especially in me being outraged who brought up two Wolverines before a Spartan. I do see the irony in this 100%.
And I'm going to close with a guy that we don't talk about as a Michigan guy, although born and raised in Detroit, had a great college career at Eastern. But obviously the NBA, or I should say ABA, little stint there. Iceman, George Iceman Gervin.
Yeah.
Great player. Hall of Famer. I mean, really, was he top 75 player? He had to have been, right?
Yeah.
George Gervin.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, he's a guy that was a go bucket getter, and really kind of that changing of the small forward position in a lot of ways. A revolutionary player in the late 70s.
He is 75. He is NBA 75, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, he it had to be. Yeah. The Iceman. It's just like, I talked about probably Magic putting Michigan on the map. It was probably George Gervin that actually probably did that first. Second thought. But I mean, and it's tough because it's like, oh gosh, like when you're putting together, it's like you don't realize how quickly this list gets really deep, and it becomes really difficult to debate because guys, Devin Booker's a guy that is from the state of Michigan.
Yeah, I probably would have had him over Jalen Rose, Jeff, but I like Rose.
What are we doing here? Like, this is our fucking list, all right? This isn't fucking ranking the best players out of goddamn Michigan. By the way, Devin Booker, he's my favorite player ever. Like, current. I love Devin Booker. I have his jersey hung up on my wall, but I didn't bring him up. God forbid, all right?
What we're doing is shitting on you, Jeff. That's exactly what we're doing.
All right? I'm going to put my Booker jersey on right now.
Oh my god!
Can't forget about D Book though.
yeah.
I'm glad.
Any
you
honorable mentions you want to throw in there, Sean, besides Devin Booker?
I mean, let me pull up. I had a long list right in front of me here. So list of all the NBA players born in the state of Michigan. So some pretty great ones up there. I mean, obviously George Gervin, Devin Booker, John Brisker was a guy in the 70s. Chris Webber, Magic Johnson. I mean, Jason Richardson.
Yeah, big time.
That I remember he was really fun to watch. Kyle Kuzma,
Draymond
Flint
Green.
native, playing really well, doing
JaVale
good things.
McGee.
Yeah.
JaVale McGee. Yeah, he's definitely. Jordan Crawford is from Michigan. I mean, we got some I mean, oh wait, wrong Crawford, my bad.
No, not Jamal. Not
I
Jamal.
was thinking Jamal Crawford. I was like,
Seattle.
Jordan Crawford, Sean, when we were in college, was on the Drive for a little bit. He had some good
That's
games
right.
for Grand Rapids Drive.
Yep, that's right. Definitely not definitely not the baller I was thinking of.
Hey,
But I mean,
Spencer Haywood, who honestly, yeah, never mind.
Detroit Mercy, baby.
I got some bad
Go Titans.
memories. I got some bad memories. Spencer Haywood, first time meeting him, completely shit on me, but that's another story for him.
Really? You met Spencer?
Yeah, he's a douchebag. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say it. Spencer, if you're watching, you're a douchebag. I'm sorry.
Was that at Woodward or just in your?
Yeah,
personal life?
listen,
Okay.
I have a lot of respect for players that have played the game. I'm a fan at heart. I cover the team, but I'm gonna show these guys respect. Spencer Haywood, man, he laid the wood on me. All right, pause on that. But he wasn't taking no prisoners that day.
I remember you called me after, like, I'm pretty sure you called me after this. And you were just like, yeah, big into basketball. No, you ain't.
Dude, he's like, no, you ain't. You ain't into basketball. I was like, what? I just met you. Like, he shredded me. Like, obviously, I mean, we know why I don't look like I'm into basketball. I'm a 6 foot white dude dressed in khakis, but hey, I love basketball.
I like to think it was the haircut.
You're into basketball.
Yeah, I'm into basketball. I love it. Played it, but no, he completely evaporated me. It's okay though. Still love him. He's still a great player. But yeah, he was a big douchebag that day. Maybe he just woke up on the wrong side of the pillow. Who knows?
Hey, we love how much of a douchebag he is.
Yeah, we cherish it. We do. We cherish it. That's old Spencer Haywood.
It's like that uncle that you want to just, go away and, just squeeze the pillow on his face harder. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Oh my god.
Oh my god. We're the douchebags. We're the douchebags.
Speaking of gasping for air, this podcast is killer. And it's killer because I get to do it with you guys each and every week. And thank you so much to everyone that's listening and making From Half Court your home for NBA and Pistons news and go-to. We really appreciate it. Man, it was crazy. I want to say before we end the pod, I just got a I just got a notice this past week that I got a memory that 2 years ago this past week was when I bought my first microphone. So to see, just what 2 years has done and what this has turned into, we're just getting started, man. Mm-hmm. I'm excited. So this is episode 88.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Look at us go, man. We're old as crap.
We got to have something planned for the 100th episode.
Oh, 100% we do. 100% we do. I've been thinking about, oh my God, this is episode 90.
So 10 more. 10
this
more
is
weeks.
special.
Yeah, 100%, man. Thank you all so much for listening. Again, join the From Half Discord down below to join the to have discourse and conversation with the community. Join there and talk with us. We'll catch you guys next time. From Half Court. Sure you subscribe.